My name is Marina Lara Westcott, 33 years old. Mom had plated the room before anyone arrived. Soft gold runner down the dining table, candles that smelled like cinnamon wanting to be something older, chairs pulled in close, as if proximity alone could count as love. We came early, me and my son Ethan, because he had stirred cranberries into the sauce until his arms ached, and he wanted Grandma to see. He held the chilled glass bowl like an offering. I held my breath like a habit. She took the bowl with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, slid it behind her store-bought version, then wiped a non-existent drip and said, "Lovely." The way you might say next. I didn't correct her. Over the years, I'd learned that with my mother, hospitality was a stage direction, not a feeling. Dinner was the usual choreography. My sister breezing in with her kids first to the good seats. My father opening a wine he said was for adults who appreciate restraint, then pouring a glass for my sister's 12-year-old because she's mature for her age. I kept my hand steady, my mouth neutral. There's a way to survive these scenes. Touch nothing that can break, say nothing that can be quoted. Ethan asked about mashed potatoes. Not a demand, just a curious, no potatoes this year? Mom laughed, eyes sliding over him like he was a picture on a wall. Some people don't need any more starch, she said, light as air and twice as cold. I felt the comment land on him and tried to lift it with my eyes. He pretended not to hear. He is good at pretending. That is not a compliment. I have gotten used to favorites, to watching my mother light up at my sister's entrance like a switch was flipped, to hearing my father call my brother Ryan's kids the legacy, while mine were treated like footnotes in someone else's chapter. I made peace with being the inconvenient firstborn, the quiet one who learned the power of the word no. They wanted control. I learned distance. They never forgave the independence. I bought my own house. I turned down my father's offer to wrap the mortgage into the family trust for efficiency. Efficiency meant his name on the deed. It meant strings braided into a rope. I smiled and said no, then paid my bills on time and lived with the way he tightened, slowly, like a man holding his temper. Dessert was Ethan's favorite part, Mom's pumpkin cheesecake. He set the dessert plates without being asked. I watched his small, stubborn pride in the straightness of each stack. My sister's kids got their slices first, thick and generous, fork tines sinking into orange, the air suddenly sweeter. The platter circled back to my mother. Ethan waited, still smiling. She didn't look at him. She didn't lower her voice. He didn't earn dessert after the way he acted, she said, and the room went quiet in that particular way where everyone keeps chewing. One of the twins asked for seconds and got them. Ethan swallowed nothing. He looked at me, not wounded exactly, but resigned, like he already understood that protest doesn't change people who enjoy their power too much. He whispered, "It's okay." That was the part that broke something still soft in me. I helped him into his coat. I didn't explain. I didn't say goodbye. We walked out past the foyer photographs where my face has always looked dimmer than the rest, as if the light refuses to waste itself on me. At home, I made hot cocoa too sweet on purpose, slid the backup cookies across the counter like a secret pact, and watched his shoulders unhitch as sugar did the small work of mercy. He fell asleep early. I stayed awake late. At 10:13 p.m., my father texted, "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." No greeting, no question mark, no acknowledgement of what happened under his roof. Just an instruction, like the night had been a conference call and I'd missed my action item. I stared at the screen until it dimmed and lit again with its own pulse. There are words for what you feel when a parent humiliates your child. Betrayal, fury, grief. But the truest feeling isn't loud. It's still. Something in me went quiet in a way it had never done before. Not the silence of being erased, the silence of aim. People will tell you the cruelty tonight is new. It isn't. It's the end of a long line of small permissions. I thought about the way Mom brushed past us at holidays, the way Dad offered help that came with a deed attached, the way I stopped asking them to care about what they never would. I thought about Ryan, who notices everything and intervenes only when asked, his mercy and his fear. I thought about the lake house. The summer the siding went up wrong and I wrote a check I couldn't afford because the family needed a hand, and how Dad said, "Just sign this for now. We'll take your name off after closing. I thought about how after never seems to arrive. I thought about paper. Theirs, mine. I opened my laptop and began to write, not to them, for me, a ledger of every small cut dressed as advice. Every time I was told I was too sensitive, too cold, too ungrateful. Every joke about Ethan's appetite, height, grades, silence. Every holiday I let slide because that's just how they are. The truth doesn't need italics. It needs ink. I do not argue with my father in messages. He doesn't hear text. He hears compliance. I typed 2 words, will do, and didn't send them. Instead, I logged into the accounts and looked at the threads that tied our names together. The old mortgage auto pay vault he wanted access to. The vestiges of the trust link we never truly untangled. I didn't touch anything yet. I just looked, the way you memorize a map before you leave a city. People think rebellion is loud. Sometimes it's a woman at a kitchen table, 8 tabs open, a yellow legal pad under her wrist, the house silent except for the refrigerator and a child slow breathing from the next room. Sometimes it's not anger, it's architecture. At 2 a.m, I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Tomorrow my father would expect a wire. He would expect deference. He would expect me to be the same daughter who kept the peace, regardless of the cost. Tomorrow he would find out that I am still quiet, just not compliant. The screen lit once more, a group photo from Mom's page. Thanksgiving table pristine, candles unburned, just enough to look eternal, my sister's kids grinning with forks upraised. Caption, family, gratitude, love. The word love almost made me laugh out loud. There are people who use that word the way you use a tablecloth, to cover stains. I put the phone face down and went to check on Ethan. He had curled himself into a parenthesis, leaving space for the rest of the sentence. I tucked the blanket under his shoulder and whispered into the crown of his hair, "You earned everything." He didn't stir. The house creaked the way old bones do when the weather changes. I will transfer the mortgage in the morning, I thought, but not the way he expects. Not into his hands, not into his story. There are other signatures that matter, other doors that will open when paper says they must. Thanksgiving wasn't the last straw. It was the proof. If they want to cut us out, they can learn what that really looks like. I turned off the hall light and let the apartment go still around us. The quiet had weight now, but not the kind that pinned me down. The kind you pick up with both hands and carry. The text from Dad waited like a dare. I didn't delete it. Evidence belongs where you can find it. When the kettle clicked awake before dawn, I was already at the table, writing down a list of what would move and when. Not fleeing, rearranging, not revenge, repair. Outside, the streetlights hummed. Inside, a woman who had mistaken endurance for love began to remember the difference. By morning, the list had become a ledger. Dates, sums, names, and the little phrases people use when they want to be cruel without losing their manners. I wrote it straight, no embellishments. The lake house check labeled temporary. The trust emails with their polite threats. The Christmas when Ethan's gift was misplaced, and then appeared in a photo with my sister's twins. I didn't write for the courtroom. I wrote so I wouldn't forget the pattern when nostalgia tried to bargain for a discount. Ethan's soccer game was that afternoon. The field was loud in the way only children can make a place loud. Shoelaces slapping. Parents praising like coaches. The whistle always a second late. I stood at the edge line with my coffee cooling in my hands and watched my son run with that stubborn little lean he has, as if he's always pushing against wind only he can feel. Ryan arrived with his youngest and a bag of orange slices, nodding at me like we were meeting in a neutral country. We didn't talk until halftime. His kid peeled an orange beside Ethan, both boys pretending not to hear grown-ups speaking their names. "Mom says you overreacted," Ryan said without preface. "Says Ethan was rude about the potatoes." I kept my eyes on the field. "Do you believe her?" He didn't answer that. He stared at the chalk line until it blurred. "Tell me what you want me to do." Not what happened. Not can I help. A sentence like a hand extended palm up. I felt my shoulders drop in that small way they do when someone actually means it. "I'm done," I said. "No more strings. No more trust leverage. I want out of everything tied to them. The family investments, any mortgage link, the old auto pays, all of it clean." He didn't even blink. "Okay. I mean actually done," I said, almost laughing at myself. "Not a fight we have to have again in 6 months." Okay, he repeated like a signature. I'll talk to the attorney. Dad will find out, I warned. He always does. Ryan looked towards the bleachers where two mothers wore identical scarves without realizing it. He already knows he's losing you, he said. This just changes the method. I didn't cry. Gratitude inside me never arrives as tears. It arrives as steadiness. I nodded and tried to memorize the way the sun hit the grass just then. After the game, Ethan ran to us grinning, hair slicked with sweat, cheeks bright. Did you see my pass? He asked Ryan. Highlight of my year, Ryan said, and meant it. He is not part of the problem. He is sometimes part of the delay. That night, while Ethan showered and sang off key, my phone chimed. A photo from Mom. My sister's kids holding up the leftover pumpkin cheesecake like trophies, forks aloft, mouths open mid-laugh. Under it, next time, maybe Ethan will earn a slice. I stared at the screen long enough for the room to tilt. Then I saved the image to a folder labeled Evidence and blocked her number for the night, the way you turn off a dripping faucet and feel the house relax. I called Ryan. Split the trust, I said. Get my portion out. If there's a fee, I'll pay it. If there's a delay, I'll wait. I want my name separated on everything. Understood, he said. I'll email the firm in the morning. Ryan, I added, hating that I needed to say it out loud. Don't let him talk you out of it. He won't, Ryan said. I won't let him. We ended the call, and I opened the laptop again, clicking through the dull little boxes that have decided so much of my life. Accounts, beneficiaries, auto pays, paperless statements that make abuse feel green. I printed anything that mattered, not because paper is safer, but because paper looks you in the face. When I was done, there was a stack on the table and a small ache in the center of my chest that wasn't pain so much as the absence of a knot. By midweek, Dad called twice. I didn't answer. The voicemail arrived in that voice he uses when he's cosplaying reasonable. I've noticed some movement in the accounts, he said, like he'd seen a bird migrate and wanted to file a report. Let's make sure there aren't any misunderstandings. He is very good at the soft weapon. There were no misunderstandings. For the first time in decades, everything felt painfully clear. Ryan forwarded me an email chain the next morning. Dad had phoned the firm and then followed up in writing, CCing Ryan, but not me. Marin is unstable right now. Please do not take irreversible actions based on a temporary outburst. I read it 3 times. He didn't say I was hurt. He didn't say he was sorry. He branded me defective to slow the machinery that might inch me out of his grasp. I replied only to Ryan, temporary outburst my ass. Move it. He wrote back 5 minutes later, already in motion. That afternoon, the sky went the color of aluminum. I drove to the school pickup with a folder of documents riding shotgun like a taciturn friend. Ethan climbed in and told me about a science demo where a bottle rocketed off a straw and hit the ceiling. It made this sound, he said, and tried to imitate it, which sounded exactly like every small explosion I have refused to make in my parents' living room. Grandma texted me a picture earlier, I began, and stopped. He looked at my face in that way children do when they aren't sure if it's their fault you're careful. It wasn't kind, I said. You didn't need to see it. Okay, he said, nothing in his voice but trust. At home, we cooked quietly. He measured rice like a surgeon. I leaned against the counter and watched steam do its easy work. I thought of the lake house again, just a flash of cedar and water, and the summer the deck went in crooked. The paper I signed for now, the calendar pages that never moved my name back. How many times had I been told later about things that were meant to benefit everyone and somehow only benefited the people who already had the microphone? When he was asleep, I went looking for proof I wasn't imagining it. Not on the internet, not in messages, in a drawer. 3rd one down in my office, under the warranty cards, and a fat rubber band ball that exists only because I refuse to throw out potential usefulness. I found copies of emails from a decade ago, Dad's subject lines all logistics and weather reports, where the phrase, add Marin for now, appeared like a coffee stain. Not definitive, suggestive, the kind of breadcrumb a good attorney recognizes for what it is, direction. I told myself I was being dramatic. Then I told myself to keep looking. There is a difference between paranoia and pattern recognition. Women are taught to apologize for knowing the difference. The next morning, Mom sent out one of her mass emails, Christmas plans, with enough exclamation points to cover a crime scene. Assignments for potluck dishes, a photo of matching sweaters in a nauseous shade of red, the words unity and fresh start arranged like confetti. No mention of dessert. No mention of a boy at a table being told he hadn't earned sugar. She signs her manipulations with "for the sake of the grandchildren," and I swear the letters themselves look sticky. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Evidence. By noon, Ryan called. "Attorney says the split is technically complex, but doable," he said. "There's exposure on their side if they stall after a formal request." "Exposure," I repeated, tasting the word like something with a good bite. He hesitated. "Dad already called them. He tried to delay. He told them you're emotional." "I am," I said. "I am also correct." Ryan took a breath like a man who has decided which bridge he can afford to burn. "We'll proceed." I thanked him and hung up. Then I made a second list entitled Disconnect. Every place my name touched theirs where it didn't need to. Utility backups. The emergency credit line they pretended to forget about. The travel card Dad temporarily routed through me one summer when rewards were better in my bracket. I scheduled cancellations like appointments with a future where my child learned that love is not a bill. That evening, the doorbell rang while the pasta boiled over. I didn't look. I've learned the sound of people who think knocking entitles them to entry. It stopped. A few minutes later, my email pinged. From Dad's accountant. Subject: Advisory regarding trust amendments and long-term equity. The letter dripped with paternal caution. We strongly advise against sudden, emotionally motivated actions that may negatively impact family property. I read it standing up, then printed it, wrote noted across the top, and slid it into the folder. Ethan patted out in sock feet. "Can we do hot chocolate again?" he asked, eyes bright in that way that still undoes me. "Yes," I said. "Extra marshmallows." While he stirred, my phone lit with an unknown number, one of Dad's favorite disguises. I let it pass. The machine caught his voice, always a register lower when he believes he's being recorded. "Let's be reasonable," he said. "You can't rip families apart with paperwork." I looked at the stack by my elbow. Paper does not rip families apart. It clarifies which cuts were already made. Before bed, I opened the drawer again to the older papers, and there it was. An email from a decade ago I'd missed on the first pass, forward chain intact, a PDF attachment named in Dad's tidy style, Lake AMDMT temp.pdf. The attachment wasn't there, an artifact of a migration, but the subject line carried the rest. Adding MEW for down payment assurance, to remove post-close. My initials sat in the center like a quietly beating heart. I took a photo of the screen just in case the past learned a new trick and slipped away again overnight. Then I sent it to Ryan with 2 words, "Find this." He replied at once, "On it." I turned off the lights and stood in the doorway to Ethan's room, watching him sleep the way I did when he was a baby, counting the rise and fall like a truth I could verify with my eyes. Somewhere my parents were drafting a new story where I was erratic and ungrateful, and winter had made me cruel. I wish them luck. They are very good at fiction. Unfortunately for them, I had the deed to nonfiction. I just hadn't opened the right drawer yet. I went to bed with the phone face down in the folder under the chair. The house held still the way a stage holds its breath before the next scene. In the morning, I would move money and names and numbers. But that night, I allowed myself the small victory of not flinching when the phone vibrated. It's a strange kind of peace. The one that arrives when you stop auditioning for someone's love and start rehearsing your exit. It started the next morning with a phone call from Ryan. His voice carried the strange energy of discovery and exhaustion. "I found it," he said. I didn't know which "it" he meant yet, but the tone made me sit down. "The Lake House papers," he continued. "You were right. There was an amendment. Dad added you as a partial co-signer when you helped with the down payment. Temporarily, he wrote, but he never took your name off." I stared at the steam from my coffee like it could form sentences. "So legally, you still own part of it," he said. "Technically, they can't rent, sell, or refinance without your written consent." The words landed slow. I thought of every dinner where they bragged about that house. Every summer, I'd paid for groceries and extra repairs. Every time Dad said, "We're all in this together," while holding the only set of keys. "They forgot," Ryan said quietly. "No," I said. "They assumed I'd never check." He sighed. "They're already in talks to lease it for the summer. A company wants it for retreats, 5 figures a month." There it was, the inevitable dollar amount attached to every family conversation. "Do you want to block it?" Ryan asked. "I want them to understand that I exist," I said. "So, yes." He texted me the property manager's information. 10 minutes later, I sent the email. Polite, factual, lethal. Attached is documentation confirming my partial ownership of the Westcott property. I am not authorizing commercial use at this time. The reply came faster than I expected. Understood. Lease negotiations will pause until ownership verification is complete. I exhaled. It wasn't revenge. It was gravity, returning to its rightful pull. By afternoon, the notifications began. 6 missed calls from Mom, 1 from Dad, a voicemail that started calm and ended sharp. "You're sabotaging the family's financial goals," she hissed. "You have no idea what you're doing." I deleted it without listening to the rest. The next morning, I woke to a message from their accountant, an attached letter drenched in corporate politeness. "We strongly advise against emotionally motivated decisions that could impact family equity." Translation: "We were told to scare you." I printed it and wrote across the top, "Emotional exploited." That same afternoon, Mom sent a group email titled, "Christmas Plans," as if nothing had happened. She wanted matching sweaters for unity, a group photo for gratitude, and a fresh start for the sake of the grandchildren. She listed casseroles and desserts, pretending the last holiday had never happened. She didn't mention that she'd called my son greedy, that she'd spent the last week trying to lease a house partially owned by me, or that she'd branded me unstable to our lawyer. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Ryan with one line. "She's staging forgiveness like a dinner theater show." He replied, "Typical, keep receipts." That night, Ethan fell asleep on the couch with a blanket pulled up to his chin. I sat beside him and thought about the absurdity of it all, how the people who taught me to say thank you were incapable of saying, "I'm sorry." At 9:27 p.m., the phone rang again. "Mom," I answered this time. "Marin, what are you doing?" she began, skipping pleasantries. "You're making everything worse. Your father is furious. The house deal is off." "Good," I said. "Good?" She gasped like the word was foreign. "Do you understand what this means? That income was going to cover expenses, your father's medications, the taxes." I interrupted. "The taxes for a property you tried to rent behind my back?" "Don't twist this," she snapped. "We were going to tell you." "When? After you signed?" A pause. "It wasn't your concern." "It became my concern the moment you used my name as collateral and forgot I could read." "You're being dramatic." "I'm being documented," I corrected. "You've mistaken the difference your entire life." Her breath caught. "You don't talk to your mother that way." "You're right," I said. "I never have. That's why you thought I wouldn't start." She hung up. 5 minutes later, a text came through from an unknown number. "You'll regret this when we're gone." I didn't need to check who sent it. Only one person in the family weaponizes mortality. I forwarded the text to Ryan. He replied immediately. "That's an admission. Keep it." The following day, he drove over with a folder of his own. "You're not the only one cleaning house," he said. "I'm moving our shares out too. Dad can't touch mine or yours." We sat at my kitchen table, 2 grown children of the same parents, comparing financial scars like old burns. "They'll call this betrayal," I said. Ryan nodded. "They always do when you stop letting them hurt you." For the next few days, I heard nothing. No calls, no emails, no guilt-laced voice messages. Just silence. The kind that hums when people are recalibrating their manipulation. Ethan noticed it first. "Grandma hasn't called," he said one morning while buttering toast. "Maybe she's busy," I lied. "With what?" he asked. "Learning consequences," I said. He laughed, not quite understanding, but sensing the relief in my voice. The silence ended 3 days later. I was wrapping presents with Ethan when Ryan called again, voice low and urgent. "They're throwing a surprise party for me." "On purpose?" "They posted it online, at the lake house." My heart dropped. "They're doing this for show." "Exactly," he said. "They tagged me, my wife, even the kids. Didn't tell us. They just announced it to everyone we know." I could hear his frustration breaking through the phone line. I didn't even know until a coworker texted congratulations. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Go," he said. "Not to celebrate, to end it. You coming?" I hesitated, glancing at Ethan on the floor, surrounded by scraps of wrapping paper. "Yes," I said finally. "Let's end it properly." Neither of us knew that the party would become the scene of their final undoing. We just knew that this time they weren't the only ones writing the story. Ryan's birthday used to be the only gathering that felt human. No themes, no matching outfits, no speeches, just pizza boxes and laughter spilling across a living room that didn't care who brought what. This year, he hadn't planned anything. "No big deal," he'd told me. "Just want a quiet night." But my parents couldn't stand quiet. They needed control, a stage, and an audience. And when they didn't have one, they built it. At 5:41 p.m., as Ethan and I were halfway to Ryan's house with a tray of cupcakes, my phone pinged with a notification. It was a post from my mother. A photo of the lake house, decked in string lights and banners. Surprise party for our amazing son. Couldn't let the day go by without celebrating the man who holds our family together. She tagged Ryan, his wife, their kids, not me. For a moment, the car was silent, except for the sound of tires on wet pavement. Ethan squinted at the screen. That's Uncle Ryan's house? No, I said. That's Grandma's favorite stage. I called Ryan. He picked up on the first ring. What the hell is this? He said before I could speak. They posted it online. I know. We just found out. They didn't even tell the kids. My phone's blowing up. I could hear voices in the background. His wife trying to explain to their confused children that no, there wasn't really a party, even though the internet said there was. They're trying to pull us back, I said. Make everyone believe everything's fine. Not this time, Ryan said. His voice had that stillness right before thunder. We're going. To the party? I asked. To reclaim it. 20 minutes later, we turned into the lake house driveway. Ethan stayed in the car with his cousins, watching a movie. From the outside, it looked like a scene from a catalog. Candles glowing through the windows, people milling around with wine glasses, the smell of grilled shrimp and expensive denial wafting through the cold. Ryan straightened his jacket. Let's end this. Inside, my mother saw us first. Her face flickered, shock, joy, worry, all in a second. She started toward us, mouth forming a smile too wide for her eyes. Sweetheart, she said brightly, what a surprise. You weren't supposed to see the post. Ryan didn't let her finish. Why did you post it? Her hand froze midair. We wanted to celebrate you. No, he said. You wanted a photo op. You wanted to stage a reunion for people who stopped showing up years ago. Guests were already turning toward us, murmuring. My father appeared behind her, silent and stern, the kind of man who mistakes silence for authority. Ryan, he said, not here. Don't make a scene. Ryan stepped closer. The scene was already made when you lied to everyone about this party. A few awkward chuckles rippled through the crowd, people thinking it was family banter gone theatrical. But Ryan didn't stop. You don't get to use my birthday to fix your public image, he said loudly. You don't get to pretend we're one big happy family after everything you've done to Marin, to Ethan, to all of us. My mother's smile cracked. Lower your voice. No, he said, voice steady. You don't get to stage forgiveness for strangers. If anyone here thinks this is a real family gathering, you've been misled. Someone dropped a fork. The sound was sharp in the silence that followed. My father took a step forward. Enough. Ryan turned to him. You taught us to keep secrets to make you comfortable. You taught us that love comes with contracts. I'm done learning those lessons. He looked around the room, meeting the guests' eyes one by one. This isn't a family celebration. It's damage control. The murmurs started, soft, uncertain. People exchanged looks. My mother's friends whispered behind their wine glasses. My father's jaw clenched. You're humiliating your mother. No, Ryan said quietly. She's been humiliating herself for years. I'm just stopping the applause. And with that, he turned and walked out. I followed. Outside, the air felt like a door finally opening. We didn't run or shout. We just left. Behind us, I heard the music stop and the faint, awkward sound of guests trying to pretend nothing had happened. In the car, Ethan looked up from the movie. Was it weird? He asked. Yeah, I said. But we didn't stay long. He nodded, satisfied. Good. That night, my phone buzzed again. Mom, you're destroying this family. Are you happy now? You've turned Ryan against us. I hope your bitterness was worth it. I didn't reply, but Ryan did. He responded in the family group chat she'd forgotten we both were still in. If you ever speak to Marin like that again, he wrote, you'll find yourself cut off permanently. From us, from the trust, and from the grandkids. This was your last chance to act like parents. No one responded. Not Mom, not Dad. The next day, Ryan called. It's done, he said. They're officially out. Out of what? The trust, the accounts, everything. I signed the amendment this morning. I didn't answer right away. They'll come to me, I said finally. Before sunset, he replied. Be ready. He was right. At 4:17 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Not frantic, just one solid knock, then nothing. I looked through the peephole. They were standing on the sidewalk, not the porch, like people who no longer knew if they were welcome. When I opened the door, my mother smiled as if we were still playing pretend. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't step aside. "About what?" Dad's voice was tight. "This is family. Family doesn't handle things through lawyers." I almost laughed. Funny, coming from a man who's used contracts and mortgages as weapons for 30 years. Mom's smile trembled. "We just want to find a way back. We didn't mean for things to go this far." I studied her face, the same face that told my son he hadn't earned dessert, the same face that smiled while erasing me from photos. "What did you mean?" I asked. "When you mocked me in front of everyone, when you staged Ryan's birthday for strangers, when you called me unstable to my lawyer." She lowered her voice. "We'll apologize to Ethan, to you, whatever you want." I waited, but that was it. No ownership, no truth, just performance. I shook my head. "You don't get to apologize for the consequence, only for the cause, and I don't hear that." Her eyes filled, but not with remorse, just disbelief that her usual act wasn't working. I took a breath and said the last words I would ever say to them. "You're not a legacy. You're a lesson." Then I closed the door. No yelling, no drama, just the sound of something ending quietly and permanently. That night, my inbox filled with one last email. 5 paragraphs of melodrama from my mother about forgiveness, family, and regret, ending with a single line. "You'll regret this when we're gone." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Ryan. He responded 10 minutes later. "Effective immediately. I've removed their access to all remaining funds. It's final." The message felt heavy in my chest. Not victory, not vengeance. Just an ending that had taken too long to arrive. Outside, the snow started to fall in slow, deliberate flakes. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, listening to the quiet take its rightful place. The next morning felt unfamiliar. Not peaceful, not triumphant, just empty in a way that didn't hurt. Like a wound that had finally closed overnight. Ryan called first. "It's official," he said. "The filings went through. Their names are off everything. They can't touch us anymore." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "How are you holding up?" "Relieved," he said. "And a little sad, which is stupid." "It's not stupid," I told him. "It's the last of the guilt leaving your body." He laughed quietly. "Maybe. Anyway, we're doing dinner tonight. Just us. You, Ethan, my family, nothing fancy." "Peace sounds like a good theme," I said. After we hung up, I looked around the house. The air felt different, lighter somehow. There were no missed calls, no emails waiting like landmines, no errands born of obligation. I brewed coffee and stood by the window. Snow had begun to melt into thin ribbons across the sidewalk, glistening like glass veins. Ethan came down the hall, rubbing his eyes, hair sticking up. "Morning," he said. "Are we going to Uncle Ryan's later?" "Yeah," I said. "We are." "Cool." He smiled, simple as sunlight. By late afternoon, we were standing in Ryan's backyard under a sky the color of quiet steel. String lights glowed between the fence posts, soft and amber. His wife handed me a mug of cider and hugged me longer than she ever had before. No speeches, no apologies, just presents. The kids made their own table out of blankets and couch cushions, spilling crumbs and laughter all over the floor. Ethan helped Ryan's daughter build a fort under the coffee table. Their giggles rose like proof that the world keeps moving, no matter who tries to freeze it. After dinner, Ryan raised his glass. "To choosing peace," he said softly, "even when it costs blood." Everyone clinked glasses, even Ethan, with his juice. For a moment, no one said anything. The wind outside brushed against the house like a sigh. The lights shimmered, reflected in the window pane, and for the first time in years I realized that silence doesn't have to mean tension. It can mean safety. Later, while the kids watched a movie, Ryan and I stepped out onto the porch. Our breath curled into small clouds. "They'll try to reach out again," he said. "Probably." "You going to answer?" "No," I said. "They had decades of my attention. I'm not giving them the encore." He nodded, slow and proud. "Good." I smiled. "You know, we keep waiting for closure to feel dramatic. But this is it. The paperwork, the quiet, the kids laughing inside, that's all it ever needed to be." "Exactly," Ryan said. "It's not a finale, it's just life finally without an audience." When Ethan came outside, he slipped his small hand into mine. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Always. I like it better this way, just us." I squeezed his hand. "Me too." As we drove home that night, the streets were empty, the snow turning to mist. From the passenger seat, Ethan hummed softly, the kind of tune children invent when they feel safe. Back home, I tucked him in and stood in the doorway watching him drift off. His face was peaceful, unguarded, no longer waiting for approval from people who could only love through conditions. Downstairs, my phone lit up twice. Unknown number, no voicemail. I didn't check. I just turned it face down. I made tea, sat on the porch, and watched the world in its small motions. A car passing, a neighbor's light flicking off, the faint hum of distant traffic. I thought about everything my parents had taken. Time, trust, the years I spent mistaking fear for loyalty. But I also thought about what they'd given me without meaning to, proof that endurance can be repurposed into strength. They would tell their version of the story, of course. In theirs, I'd be the cold one, the ungrateful one, the daughter who abandoned her family out of pride. They'd tell it often enough until they started believing it. But I didn't need to correct them. The truth didn't need witnesses anymore. I finished my tea, stood up, and looked at the faint glow coming from Ethan's window. That was my proof. When I finally went inside, I passed the drawer where I'd kept the old documents, the mortgage, the trust papers, the letters. I opened it one last time. The stack was thinner now. Half of it gone to lawyers, half to recycling. Only one folder remained. Evidence. I slid it to the back, out of reach. Not erased, just archived. Because healing isn't pretending the past didn't happen. It's living like it no longer decides who you are. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably sitting in their too-quiet house, rewriting history to make sense of their loss. Let them. If that story helps them sleep, they can keep it. My story starts here, in a house without control, disguised as love, with a son who knows kindness isn't something you earn, and with a quiet that finally belongs to me.